Alright, Shalom. This is the brother Tazawamia from GMS South Carolina camp. I want to first and foremost give all praises to Yahweh Shemal Shai. Double honors to the elders of Great Millstone who taught me this truth. And Shalom to the Akim out there pushing the truth and sincerity. I want to touch on this topic in the news. It's fulfilling prophecy. Alright. And then just to highlight one of the signs of the time, which is commotion. Alright. You have the so-called anniversary of Occupy Wall Street, right? And this is just fulfilling prophecy, all right? And I'm gonna show through the scriptures that this is a sign that this man's kingdom, so-called white man's kingdom, all right, which are you biblical Edomites, all right, that you're on the decline, okay, and that this place is soon to be destroyed. Alright, I'm going to play these two video clips and I'm going to get in the scriptures and I'm going to wrap it up. Alright.
Years ago, on September 17, a movement changing national dialogue was born in the U.S. For many, opening a new chapter in American history.
The awakening of a collective consciousness about staggering economic inequality, the rise of a corporate state, the loss of a genuine democracy, and the attempt by the part of large numbers of people to do something about it.
Fast forward to 2 years later, the protesters are out again. On their 2-year anniversary, Occupy Wall Street is back on the streets of Manhattan to demand an end to wealth inequality, as well as accountability for Wall Street.
It's a birthday party, and it's our second annual awareness of what is wrong with this country day.
Under heavy police presence, many of the familiar faces return to the place where it all started, Zuccotti Park. It was here that for 2 months, 2 years ago, protesters spent day and night to get their message across before being evicted by the NYPD.
It was just an amazing, beautiful moment that no one expected. It was brought down by the DHS, the NYPD, brutally just taken out and destroyed.
Since the nighttime raid on Zuccotti Park in November of 2011, Occupy no longer has a permanent physical presence in New York, though it gathers on occasion to bring attention to issues still plaguing the U.S.
The ideology hasn't turned over, right? The dominant assumptions of free market capitalism that have incubated in the American cultural sphere and political sphere and legal sphere and economic sphere for the last, half a century to especially the last 30 years, those are going to take a long time to reverse.
And even a longer time if they're not highlighted. And that's exactly what Occupy helped achieve, catapulting the idea of the 1% into the national conversation and giving birth to widespread debate about the changes that need to come. Anna, pepper sprayed by the NYPD at the highlight of the movement, says the number of protesters has dwindled largely due to the police violence they faced.
A lot more people saw that police brutality is a real issue facing this country.
Despite the crackdowns, activists have kept working. Branches of Occupy such as Strike Debt and Occupy Sandy, with thousands continuing to struggle a year after the devastating hurricane, still working around the clock.
We're talking about thousands. I mean, there was 7,500 displaced as of the last figure we got, which was a few months ago. We have a very complicated mess in all the affected areas.
Plenty of other active projects that came out of Occupy are up and running too.
There's people who are doing work against the pipeline in New York. There are people who just released a banking booklet about how to understand the banking crisis from alternative banking. There are so many different groups that still exist.
People's power!
Few expected the passion of the movement to keep afloat as long as it has, and activists say much more should be expected.
Something's going to come. It may not be called Occupy, it may not look like Occupy, and yet its genesis will come back to this park and what happened here 2 years ago.
All day, all week, Occupy Wall Street!
Anastasia Churkina, RT, New York.
Alright, you saw that, man. That's just the pride of the so-called white man. Now, hopefully you people that been keeping up with these people, these so-called occupiers, these so-called 99%ers, these so-called truthers, alright, which claim they speak the truth and all this, okay. Their whole end game or their goal is to unite everybody to try to reestablish America of old. Alright? Okay, that's their whole thing. Alright? And when you looked in that clip, the majority of the people you saw were heathens. Those were all heathens. Not you Israelites, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. Why? It's because this whole Occupy thing is for the heathens. It's not for you Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. Okay? That's why they protesting in Manhattan. That's why they protest at Wall Street. Okay? And to be honest, this is the only way they even a memory or a blip in someone's memory is because the media keeps boosting them up. Okay? Where we teach at in Charlotte, they used to have an Occupy Wall Street about 2 years ago. Alright? But they're not in existence anymore. Okay? They're not marching. They're not doing their 99 all day, all week Occupy Wall Street. They're not doing that. Why? Because it got shut down. Why? Because it was of the Lord. Okay? And they don't have the truth. And they came up against us up there in Charlotte, and we told them, the Jakes, you Israelites that was amongst them, to separate yourself from them. That's not for us. But they mocked us, and now they all bugged out and scared because they done brought legislation down, alright, to persecute those people. And we told them, alright.
But 2 years later, the question remains, what good actually came out of the movement? The banks are still bigger than ever. The penalty for their risky behavior was more of a slap on the wrist than a real punishment. As an example, JP Morgan Chase agrees to pay $800 million in fees for a multi-billion-dollar trading loss case known as the London Whale. $1,800 million sounds like a lot to you and me, but it is chump change for this bank. One positive thing did happen, though. JP Morgan will acknowledge that it should have caught the problem faster. The settlement, which reflects a somewhat tougher line now being taken by the SEC, is seeking admissions from defendants. Also will require the bank to admit that its lax controls allowed traders in a unit in London to build the risky position and cover up their losses. So they're admitting guilt. But is this the kind of punishment the Occupy Wall Street movement was looking for? Are Occupy protesters satisfied with the results of the movement? Here to bring us some answers to those questions are Occupy activists Sam Jeweler and Ilana Alize, and they're in our DC studio, and in our New York studio, Mike Perlman.
No, all these are heathens, mainly so-called white people. Alright, the girl probably in Washington D.C. with the wrap over her head, she's probably Syrian or Assyrian, but they're all heathens, man. Simple-minded heathens. But this is all to fulfill prophecy. I'm gonna break it down once they finish talking their rhetoric.
Mike is the director of the film The 99% Occupy Everywhere. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Sam, let's start with you. Characterize the Occupy movement looking back 2 years later after it began.
Well, I think now people don't see Occupy in the headlines as much the way they did before and kind of assume that it has gone away or something. But I think for us and for a lot of people who were involved, it really connected us with each other. Like before it started, I think a lot of us were kind of felt alone in our politics and alone in our frustration around the country, and Occupy brought us together in a real way, a very deep way. It kind of radicalized us. It showed us that, like, you know, we have legitimate critiques that a lot of the country identifies with, and that it's going to take a lot of civil disobedience and a lot of outrage to start to change things, and it's really connected us. And
note, he says civil disobedience, alright, which that goes into the word sedition. Okay, see, all this Occupy Wall Street stuff is basically set up, which we know is set up by the international bankers, the same people that they claim they protesting against, which is the 1%, but it's all set up to pass legislation, alright, to make laws to take away the First Amendment, which is freedom of speech, alright, and to further oppress the people, man. That's why he didn't directly answer the question. She asked, you know, how's it going? Is it still moving? He knows that it's dying out, man. Okay, The only people that still pushing for this are a bunch of retards, man, and a bunch of simpletons, like this guy right here. All right, but he's promote. That's what Occupy Wall Street is promoting, sedition. All right, and this is one way they can further keep passing executive orders to perfect their legislation, so that when they implement martial law and they operate in those executive orders, they could be justified, and one labeling Occupy Wall Street as terrorists, which they already did that, as domestic terrorists, and also to when they implement that martial law, which is military law, they'll have every right to come in there and basically destroy them people, and that's what the scripture's gonna say.
Since then, a lot of us have worked together on a lot of labor-related things, a lot of anti-war, all kinds of issues.
Anti-war. See, man, and if you study in the scriptures, you know that this whole movement is against the scriptures, man. You people calling yourselves truthers, you got the truth now. You're it's nothing but the truth. We bring out facts and stuff. All right, but when the occupiers came across the Israelites, the brothers out there prophesying, okay, you bucked up against it. You had, oh no, we about establishing America. We tell you that according to the Bible, America gonna be destroyed, and that this place is you can't rebuild this place. It's going down. Oh no, we can do it. So you glory against the truth. All right. So man, talking about anti-war. Scriptures talk about war, man. All right, there's gonna be kingdom against kingdom.
Have been re-energized. I think it's brought
this whole thing is rebellion
that were really needed.
And Mike, you directed a documentary about the Occupy movement. What kind of narrative did that documentary set up?
Yeah, it was really important when I went down to Zuccotti Park and spent time and then began listening and then joining different groups and helping to organize actions, that I saw and heard a lot of people speaking very intelligently and passionately about our critical issues of our day and offering solutions. But I wasn't seeing that narrative being told in the press and or in the mainstream media. And that's why we were compelled to make this film. We've been making documentary films for more than a decade now. And the common thread has been a struggle for freedom and justice told through emotional stories. And I thought that through Occupy, that would be a great way to do it. So what we found was an umbrella issue of money out of politics that corrupts our system, where the state is literally oftentimes controlled by corporations who are instrumental in passing legislation.
Well, you just saw the black woman, all right? And you had, especially down here in Charlotte, you had a lot of Jake women, all right, camping out with them heathens, all right, linking up with Edomites and all types of heathens. All right, because they was basically freaking off with them, man. And basically they wanted attention. This whole thing is showing that these people just thirst for attention, but this attention they craving is going to lead to their destruction, man. Fucking simple ass people.
For their benefit at the expense of the rest of us. So if we're able to remove that money from politics, then we can address the critical issues of our time. Fair taxation, fair elections, and fair trade. And so that's the umbrella in which we developed the film. And we were very happy to have Jeffrey Sachs in the film, a very well-known economist. He connects the dots in a very concrete way. And we were just amazed to find out that with fair taxation, simply the same taxes being paid by the wealthy and the corporations that the middle class are paying, we could raise more than $500 billion a year, which would be more than enough money for preschool through college education for free for all Americans. We could rebuild an infrastructure with a green grid. We could create millions of good American jobs. You know, so that's the type of thing that we found out and we wanted to show in the film.
Alana, what work is still going on today? I mean, obviously the tents are down, but things are still happening, right?
Yes, most definitely. I mean, we have like a lot of occupiers who have, opened up the way for like labor, student debt, housing crisis activists, discovering different ways in which we can mobilize, the left or the radical, or just people who are discontent with the way the system is now. And so Occupy was a way in which there wasn't like an infrastructure necessarily built, so there was a lot of creativity being, brought.
Confusion. That's basically what she's saying. There's no structure. All right, that's why it fell apart. There's no structure. You got one person, but we'll get it in the scriptures. You got one person will do what they want to do. This person doing what they want to do. All right.
Up by people who are older, people who are younger, families, sometimes homeless people as well, just coming together underneath the umbrella of trying to make the world a better place and being the change that you want to see. So we have like all of these types of people who just want a better world coming together and bouncing off ideas off of each other. And you have a lot of leftist groups, whether it be unions, whether it be other, radical groups that have been using different tactics that have been developed by Occupy. So it's really just helped regenerate the left and helped the morale of activists across the country and across the world, because suddenly now we're connected and there's a community there for once when we felt very alone.
Sam, we can't help when we talk about the Occupy movement 2 years later to ask what the tangible results are. Are there any tangible results? I mean, as I was mentioning, the banks are still huge. The disparity between the rich and the poor is still massive and growing. So what tangible results are there?
Yeah, and these are huge problems that are going to take a long time to rectify. But like Ilana said, I think we've really empowered the left and connected the left, and we personally know many people who we struggled with in McPherson Square who have gone on to do labor organizing here in DC, in New York, in Chicago, and along with those people have come those tactics of civil disobedience and really making big demands and bringing some anger and some fight to it.
Well, I mean, just the idea that you know what 99% means or what the 1% means, that's like a huge improvement. For instance, when Mitt Romney, the whole 47% thing came about, people automatically knew what he was talking about, and it resonated with them from like 99% to 47%. What does that mean for the country? There's a lot of people, I'm not like the biggest Obama fan by far, but, I think that groups like Occupy brought up things like the Robin Hood tax, etc., things like that, which I think the Democrats, even though I think, they have their issues definitely, utilize in their messaging. Sure. To appeal to the masses, because I think that we brought up some really interesting and pertinent issues that resonates with the country.
And Mike, we have just about a minute left, but I have to ask you, from your experience, is there any regrets, anything that you would change or make different? Would you have accepted money or had a leader or maybe done it at a different time? Because obviously timing played a huge part in this, considering the fact that it happened right before winter and when it got really cold. So what do you think?
I think that the movement itself has many legs and is operating in many different facets that maybe doesn't get front page news simply because there's not an active confrontation and the police aren't clamping down on peaceful protesters. But the movement continues in the ways that the panels here have discussed today. And I'm happy Ilana spoke about the Robin Hood tax, because that's a huge coalition of more than 200 organizations representing more than 200 million people around the world, all agreeing that we have to have a tiny little financial transaction tax that will actually help stabilize the markets and raise hundreds of billions of dollars and put people before profit. And that is the celebration of Occupy.
We're going to have to, unfortunately, we're going to have to end it there. We're just out of time. Occupy activist Sam Jeweler and Ilana Alazay, and Michael Perman. He's from our New York studio. Mike is the director of the 99% Occupy Everywhere.
All right, let's go to the scriptures. Okay, now you see what they talking about, which is madness. Now let me get on this part about agreeing with your enemy, because he said they are peaceful. They're not peaceful, man. Okay, all right. When the cops came out, you supposed to agree with them, stay in order. They was out of order, man. This is Matthew chapter 5, verse 25. It says, agree with thine adversary quickly, while thou art in the way with him, lest at any time the adversary deliver thee to the judge, and the judge deliver thee to the officer, and thou shalt be cast into prison. Verily I say unto thee, thou shalt by no means come out thence till thou hast paid the utter furthering. That's right. Okay. And that's, oh man, you know, people was giving them attention when they was getting arrested. All right. Because why they was getting arrested? Because they was out of order. Okay. All right. But let's go into the scriptures. Matthew 24 verse 3. It says, and as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, Tell us, when shall these things be, and what shall be the sign of thy coming, Salat, in the end of the world? And Yahushua, which you literally call Jesus, his name in Hebrew is Yahushua, answered and said unto him, Take heed that no man deceive you. Okay? That's right. You're supposed to pay attention that you don't get deceived. Alright? This is Luke 21:8. Alright? It says, and he said, Take heed that ye be not deceived, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and the time draweth near, go ye not therefore after them. But when ye shall hear war and commotions, be not terrified, for these things must first come to pass, but the end is not by and by. Okay? That's right. Okay, because it said, it said that commotions. Alright? And that word commotion goes into these uproars and protests. Alright? That's what it's talking about. Okay? Alright? Go to James. Alright, James 3:13. Alright, so them being out there protesting, alright, that was fulfilling prophecy. Which we highlight that, which we showed them that, but they didn't want to believe that because they thought it was of themselves. Okay? The Lord put the Spirit on them to fulfill that. Okay? This is James 3:13. Who is the wise man and endowed with knowledge among you? Let him show out of a good conversation his works with meekness of wisdom. Which that word conversation talking about manner of conduct. Okay, so these people, which he said, oh, they're so intelligent and they have such wisdom and all this. Why didn't they operate in meekness of wisdom? Okay, they're proud, man. It says, but if ye have bitter envy and strife in your hearts, glory not, and lie not against the truth. The truth of the fact is that the nation of Edom, alright, which is you so-called white people, you got judgment to pay for. And there's no rebuilding, there's no reestablishing America. Okay, America is destined to be destroyed. And just because y'all want to point the finger at the elite banking families, which is still part of your nation, pointed at them as they're the cause for slavery and the oppression and all this, because now you getting oppressed. Now you want to join up with us, the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, whom you, while you was in your little moments of prosperity, all right, as the middle class, or you know, having your money, your picket fence, and your woman, your little children, all right, maybe a pet, okay, 2 cars, all right, making decent pay. Now you catching hell, all right. Now you becoming poor. Now you want to protest and bring up all this strife because you envying the elite banking families. All right. Okay. So when we tell you the truth, which all the prophets done told you the truth, either you came across the videos or you saw us out there on the street and you approach us, we told you America gonna be destroyed and y'all gonna be destroyed too, right along with America. You can't rebuild America. You lied against the truth, saying you can. And that's what you just saw in these videos. It says this wisdom descendeth not from above, but it's earthly, sensual, devilish. Okay? Alright? Because those people are carnal. And all they care about is trying to reestablish America, man. Okay? Which is all earthly, sensual, and devilish. For where envy and strife is, there is confusion and every evil work. And that's all you saw out of that whole Occupy thing. That's why when the woman was asking him direct questions, they kind of bypassed it if you was paying attention. They didn't really answer it, because if they was to answer, yeah, it's not as strong as it used to be, or a lot of people stopped believing in it, then they'll admit that it was all just a bunch of bullshit and that they was just basically out there to cause envy and strife. And it was nothing but a bunch of confusion, and the work of it was evil. Okay? But they ain't gonna do that because they're proud. It says, but the wisdom that is from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, easy to be entreated, full of mercy and good fruits, without partiality, without hypocrisy. Okay, because if you're gonna call yourself truthers, okay, you gotta come with the whole truth. Alright? And the truth of the matter is that America was established off of murder, alright, rape, okay, and slavery, okay, and theft, alright. But you want to reestablish this place. All those things are sins unto death, man, and are justified or justifiable reasons for the Lord to destroy this place according to prophecy. Alright, so you speaking the truth with hypocrisy and being partial, because yeah, you bring out the dirt about the 1%, which is good. Alright, but you ain't gonna touch, when we touch on topics about how America was established, how did those 1%ers get rich, how did y'all so-called 99%ers was able to live a decent middle class life. It was all off of the murdering and slavery of the children of Israel, the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. Alright, so y'all a bunch of goddamn hypocrites, you know. And the fruit of righteousness is sown in peace of them that make peace. That's right. The scripture said ain't no peace to the wicked, man. Okay, go to James 1 and 8. Alright. James 1 and 8, it says, a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. Okay, that's right. And those people out there that's protesting, man, they're highly unstable. Okay, this is Isaiah 33 and 1. It says, woe to thee that spoilest, and thou was not spoiled. Talking about the so-called white man. Okay, because they spoiled not only the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, alright, over here in America, but they have spoiled the other nations. Alright, so it says, woe to thee that spoilest, and thou wast not spoiled. And dealest treacherously, and they dealt not treacherously with thee. Okay, when thou shalt cease to spoil, thou shalt be spoiled. And when thou shalt make an end of dealing treacherously, thou shalt deal, they, alright, shall deal treacherously with thee. And that's the time we're approaching. Okay, so these Edomites, so-called white people, leading this charge as the 99ers percent, alright, against the 1%. What we don't want no more war. Okay, we don't want to deal treacherously anymore with the nations. Okay, but the scriptures say once you cease to stop spoiling and cease to stop dealing treacherously, then you're going to be spoiled, and then you're going to be dealt treacherously by those whom you have dealt treacherously towards. Starting first and foremost, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American descent, which are the Israelites. Okay, alright, that's right. Okay, let me get that in. Yeah, and all this is to fulfill prophecy, like the scripture says. Alright. Get Mark 3 and 23. Alright, because you so-called white people, you're Satan, man, which means adversary against the will of God. This is Mark 3 and 23. And he called them unto him and said unto them in a parable, how can Satan cast out Satan? Alright. And that's what you so-called white people try to do. You try to we're gonna overthrow the 1%, and we're gonna reestablish America. We're gonna make everybody equal, and we all gonna be one people. Okay? But we're gonna do it our way. How can Satan cast out Satan? If a kingdom be divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. And if a house be divided against itself, that house cannot stand. And if Satan rides up against himself, occupy Wall Street against the international bankers, which is all Edomites, and be divided, he cannot stand but have an end. That's right. That's right. Matthews 12:45, it says, And Yahushua knew their thoughts and said unto them, every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation. Yep. And every city or house divided against itself cannot stand. And if Satan cast out Satan, he is divided against himself. How shall then his kingdom stand? That's right. That's right. So that Occupy Wall Street is a sign, another proof that America is on the decline. It's going down. Okay. Luke 11:17. But he, knowing their thoughts, said unto them, every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation, and a house divided against a house falleth. That's right. That is right. So you so-called white people, man, you going down, man. This is beautiful, man. All right. It's beautiful, one, you failing at your attempt to try to overthrow your elites, which they gonna kill you. But it's all to fulfill prophecy. This is Luke 21:25. It says, and there shall be signs in the sun, and in the moon, and in the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations. All right. It's a lot. Distress of nations. Okay. That's right. And with perplexity, which that means that one's wits is. Okay. You can't proceed. All right. The sea and the waves roaring. All right. You're going to come to find out that the sea and the waves roaring is talking about these protesters, man. All right. Like Occupy Wall Street, like the 99%ers, like the so-called truthers, the patriots, the coveted, the oath keepers. All right. I follow Alex Jones, that jackass. All right. This is Isaiah 13:4. The noise of a multitude in the mountains, like as a great people. It's a lot. The mountains represent high governments, major governments. Okay, like a great people, a tumultuous noise of the kingdoms of nations gathered together. The Lord of hosts mustereth the hosts of the battle. All right, proving that the Spirit of the Lord is on these people. All right, for them to fulfill what the Lord spoke about Satan casting out Satan, or a kingdom, house, or city being divided against itself shall come to an end of desolation, and it's going to fall. Okay, so those multitudes, like a great people, all right, making that tumultuous noise, all right, is the people protesting. Okay, all right, but I'm gonna focus just on America in this one. Okay, because you got protesting in Greece, and that just got revamped up and off of austerity measures, but we're gonna focus on America. This is Isaiah chapter 17, verse 12. It says, woe to the multitude of many people, which make a noise like the noise of the seas, and to the rushing of nations that make a rushing like the rushing of mighty waters. Because it said the seas and the waves roaring. So what is it talking about? It's talking about the multitude of many peoples. The people protesting, man. Alright. Let's get the proof of that. Psalm 65:7. Okay, Psalm 65 verse 7 says, which stilleth the noise of the seas, the noise of their waters, and the tumult of the people. Alright. So when you read it back in Luke, we're going to go back to that after I highlight this in Isaiah. But we was reading in Luke, alright, Luke chapter 21 verse 25. It was tying in with the commotions, the protesting, the seas and the waves roaring. It's talking about the people that's protesting. Okay, Isaiah 17:12. Woe to the multitudes of many people which make a noise like the noise of the seas, and to the rushing of nations that make a rushing like the rushing of mighty waters. The nations shall rush like the rushing of many waters, but God shall rebuke them. Okay, and you people get rebuked out there by the prophets. All right, because you're going off. But we ain't really concerned with you heathens. Okay. And they shall flee far off, and shall be chased as the chaff of the mountains before the wind, and like a rolling thing before the whirlwind. Alright. And behold, at eventide trouble, and before the morning he is not. This is the portion of them that spoiled us in the lot of them that robbed us, which are the nations. That's going back to Isaiah 33:1. You so-called white people, you got rich off of spoiling and dealing treacherously, robbing, starting first and foremost the children of Israel, which are you Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. It's documented history. America was established off of the genocide and mass murdering, alright, of the indigenous people of North, Central, South America, the Caribbean Isles. Okay, it was also established as riches through through slavery of the Native Americans and Latinos first, then the so-called Negroes. Okay, so there's nothing to be glorying in, man. But you truthers, you ain't gonna speak on that because you a bunch of goddamn hypocrites, man. Alright, this is Isaiah 19:1. It says the burden of Egypt, which that's talking about America. Alright, you can read Revelations 11:8. It said that the great city was in the spirit of Egypt. Alright, it's talking about America because that great city is Babylon the Great, which you read about in Revelations 14:8. Alright, and instead of as on the top of the nations, that's Revelation 17:18. You can read that yourself. It says the burden of Egypt, behold, the Lord rideth upon a swift cloud, talking about who you really call Jesus Christ when he returned. The clouds are the chariots, alright, which he coming, proving he gonna come to America, and shall come into Egypt. And the idols of Egypt shall be moved at his presence, and the heart of Egypt shall melt in the midst of it. And I will set the Egyptians against the Egyptians, alright, which the modern day Egyptians, if this is spiritual Egypt, alright, it's talking about you so-called white people. So you Edomites, you so-called white people, are against each other. I will set the Egyptian against the Egyptian, and they shall fight every one his brother, and every one against his neighbor, city against city, and kingdom against kingdom. Alright, and that's what you're seeing, man. And the spirit of Egypt shall fail in the midst thereof. That's why that occupied Wall Street is on the decline. That's why you don't see no occupy Wall Street in Charlotte no more. Okay, they used to do laps around the camp talking shit. Now they ghosts, straight Casper, man. And you might have a few of them come by and they might say, oh, you guys are our heroes, or you guys are really doing it, keep it up. But it's like, where you at? Oh, that's right, you somewhere bugged out in your house, wondering any moment if the government is going to send some special ops to come kidnap your ass and put you in one of the Guantanamo Bay black sites and torture the shit out of you and put your ass to death. Because that's what's going to happen to you protesters, man. You're all marked. Okay? Simple ass people, man. Alright, Isaiah 19:3. The spirit of Egypt shall fail in the midst thereof, and I'll destroy the counsel thereof. Yeah. That's why this place is in perplexity at one's wit's end. Can't go no further. Proceed. Why? Because the wisdom and the counsel of both what? Your so-called leaders, you so-called 99% of truthers, you so-called covenant keepers, oath keepers, patriots, alright, that follow Alex Jones and the rest of these Occupy movements and all this bullshit, alright, your counsel's being destroyed. Why? Because the Lord ain't for America being reestablished and prospering. It's America purposed this place to be destroyed. Alright? And they shall seek to the idols, and to the charmers, and to them that have familiar spirits, and to wizards. Alright? And your forefathers were a bunch of Masons. You get these people like Alex Jones, and you even got simple ass niggas helping Alex Jones, man. But the Lord gonna kill y'all too, man. Okay, any of you simple-minded Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans are joined up with these Edomites, these heathens, alright, these other nations outside your people, trying to save this place, the Lord gonna destroy you, man. Okay, there's no hope for you. Alright, but back to the point. You got people like Alex Jones, these Occupy movers, alright, these covenant keepers, alright, the patriot type people, alright, Constitution believers, Bill of Rights believers, okay. They seeking what? They seeking to idols, and to charmers, and them that have familiar spirits, and to wizards, Going back to who? Their so-called founding fathers, which all of them were a bunch of high-level Masons, man. That's documented. They were all into witchcraft and sorcery. They were a bunch of damn charmers. They worship idols, Baphomet, and all types of madness, man. And they were a bunch of witches, too. So you flock to that, okay? It says, "And the Egyptians will I give over into the hand of a cruel lord, and a fierce king shall rule over them, saith the Lord of hosts." And who's going to be that cruel lord and fierce king? That's going to be Barack Obama, okay? Because when they implement martial law, and he's at the helm of it, he's going to move like a fucking, like I said, like a whirlwind upon you people, man. Okay, and you're going to get destroyed. You're going to get blown away, all right, like chaff before the mountain wind, man. You're going to get ran through, man. Okay. Then I want to see y'all talk that shit, talking about Occupy all day, all week, Occupy Wall Street. They're going to shut that shit down, man. Okay. So let me go to, Let me go to Psalms. It's almost over. Alright, this is Psalms 49 and 11. It says, their inward thought is, alright, that their inward thought is that their houses shall continue forever, and their dwelling places to all generations. They call their lands after their own names, and that goes back to you so-called white people, because America is named after Amerigo Vespucci, okay, which was I believe either Italian or Spanish explorer, which the name Amerigo is where you get America from, and his name actually means bitter, okay, because America is a bitter place, all right, but you want to keep this place, man. And you believe America is going to continue. That's in their inward thought. Okay, but let me get this real quick, man. All right, this is Proverbs 15:26, man. It says, the thoughts of the wicked are an abomination to the Lord, but the words of the pure are pleasant words. Yeah, it's an abomination. Okay. All right. Because this place is going down, man. This is Proverbs 11:21. Though hand join hand, the wicked shall not be unpunished, but the seed of the righteous shall be delivered. Yeah. So like I said, any of you Jakes, Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans trying to join up with the so-called white man to try to reestablish America and make this place go on forever, you're going to be destroyed, man. And you so-called white people, you're going to be destroyed. Okay? You fucking hypocrites. Okay? Alright, let's go to Psalms. Alright, Psalms 49:13. It says, this their way is their folly. Folly meaning lacking common sense. Alright, stupidity. Alright, yet their posterity approve their sayings. Talking about you so-called white people. You approve the sayings of what? Your so-called founding forefathers, which were all a bunch of goddamn murdering, slave owning, devil worshipping demons and masons. This their way is their folly, man. Okay. And the reason why y'all even getting any type of shine time is because the scriptures say this. This is Ecclesiastes 10:6. It says, folly is set in great dignity, and the rich sit in low places. Okay? It says, folly is set in great dignity. Okay? Okay? Why? Okay? And it said you approve the sayings of your fathers, man. Posterity approve their sayings. What's part of them sayings? For the Hosea. Hosea 4:1. It says, hear the word of the Lord, ye children of Israel, for the Lord have a controversy with the inhabitants of the land. Talking about you so-called white people and you heathens, because there is no truth. So amongst you so-called truthers, there is no truth. Okay, because y'all partial in the truth. You're speaking with hypocrisy, with acting. Okay, with the inhabitants of the land, because there is no truth, nor mercy, nor knowledge of God in the land. Okay, none of y'all can prove through the scriptures that the Lord is with this. And like I said, your forefathers they were not Bible believers, man. They were a bunch of goddamn Baphomet worshiping Masons, man. They were a bunch of demons, devil worshippers. Okay, this is how America was established, by swearing. We established America by the ways of the Bible. That's what Ronald Reagan said in 1983. The Bible is literally signed into the law. Okay, and we notice that's why usually when we teach in Charlotte, I don't even think we get pressured by the cops anymore, because if they come up, we can say all we're doing is reading the laws from the land. We ain't attacking nobody. We ain't causing no public disturbance by walking around. And when they ask us to do stuff, we quickly agree with them so we can continue preaching the word. All right, we in order. We ain't out of order like you goddamn so-called protesters, man. You 99%ers, which there's no truth in you, because you trying to establish America, which was built off of no truth, and America was established with no mercy and no knowledge of God. All right, because America was established by swearing and lying and killing, all right, and stealing and committing adultery. They break out in blood toucheth blood. Therefore shall the land mourn, and every one that dwelleth therein shall languish, with the beasts of the field and with the fowls of heaven. Yea, the fishes of the sea also shall be taken away. Okay. Alright. That's right. So this place is getting jacked up because of that, because that's the history of America. Alright. This is Nahum 3:1. It says, woe to the bloody city. Alright. America got so much blood accounted on it. It's ridiculous, man. Alright. From all the wars that they so-called started from World War II till now, they got so much blood on their hands. It's ridiculous. But you know what? You could just throw the blood on your hands of the mass murdering of the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans your forefathers did, coming to establish this abomination called America. So woe to the bloody city. It is all full of lies and robbery. The prey departeth not. The prey is the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, who you spoiled and dealt treacherously with. Damn devils. Alright. This is Habakkuk 1:6. It says, for lo, I raise up the Chaldeans, that bitter and hasty nation, which shall march through the breadth of the land to possess the dwelling places that are not theirs. Okay. Alright. Because America is known as Babylon the Great, beauty of the Chaldeans. Alright. So this scripture is talking about what? What you call manifest destiny, when you basically was just stealing the land and mass murdering any of the resisting Native Americans, which are the children of Israel. Okay. Alright. And you said the Lord willed it. Yeah, because it was according to prophecy. For lo, I raise up the Chaldeans, that bitter and hasty nation, which the word hasty means to be proud, which shall march through the breadth of the land to possess the dwelling places that are not theirs. They are terrible and dreadful. Their judgment and their dignity shall proceed of themselves. Alright? That's your Constitution. That's your Bill of Rights. That's your so-called democracy. Okay? Okay, and I can give two damns about you goddamn protesters, man. You occupy Wall Street. Y'all a bunch of damn reprobate hypocrites, man. The Lord gonna kill every single one of you, man. It's gonna be glorious. Alright, Micah 2:1. Woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. When the morning is light, they practice it, because it is in the power of their hand. They covet fields, talking about your fathers, you so-called white people, and take them by violence, which is known fact, and houses, and take them away. So they oppress a man and his house, even a man and his heritage. It says, therefore, thus saith the Lord, behold, against this family do I devise evil, from which ye shall not remove your necks, neither shall ye go haughtily, for the time is evil. That's right. Alright, it says, in that day shall one take up a parable against you, and lament with a doleful lamentation, and say, we be utterly spoiled. He have changed the portion of my people. How have he removed it from me? Turn away, he have divided our fields. Alright, that's right. That's right. So you occupied, so-called occupied movers. Alright, you guys are gone, man. Okay, and you try to prove, like I said back in Psalms, get that one more time. Psalms 49:13. You prove the sayings of your fathers, man. Okay. Psalms 49:13. This their way is their folly. Okay. And their posterity approve their sayings. Okay. Alright, so ain't nothing. And then like I said, man, or like the scripture say, man, if a house be divided against itself, it's not gonna stand. So this is glorious, man. The Lord about to bring y'all down, man. This is Luke 21:25. Again, it says, and there shall be signs in the heaven, signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring, which is the protesters. Man's heart fell in them for fear, and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth. For the powers of heaven shall be shaken. Talking about your leaders. Alright? And that's the time we approach, man. All this madness, this clowning around, all that stuff is going to be put to an end soon when they implement martial law. Then I want to see y'all out there popping that shit, talking about all day, all week, Occupy Wall Street. Damn hypocrites, man. We go to Second Esdras. Second Esdras, because the man mentioned the word sedition, which that's according to prophecy. Second Esdras 15:14. It says, woe to the world and them that dwell therein, for the sword and their destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up to fight against another, and swords in their hands. Now, you know, they talking about, oh, we're peaceful protesting. Well, time gonna come when you so-called activists, you protesters, alright, you gonna become violent, man. Alright? Okay, and it's already starting with your speech, because the word sedition means enticing language or action, promoting discontent or rebelling against an established government. Okay, right now you speaking, but soon y'all gonna get violent, and that's gonna lead to y'all destruction. Okay, with swords in their hand, and there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another, and they shall not regard the kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power. Meaning what? The scriptures speak of anarchy. Okay, chaos. A man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able, which is martial law. For because of their pride, cities shall be troubled, the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. Yeah, and then that's when it's going to be a separation, man, between those who have the truth, because there's no fear in truth. If you got the truth, you're going to be bold, man. Okay? Alright? And I don't believe none of y'all have the heart, okay, or really into it to the point that you want to be martyrs, because when they implement martial law and they bring in that new world order, they're going to slaughter you guys. And I already know, according to scriptures, and just by reading y'all spirits when we met y'all just going to fold. You're going to go with the program. Okay? Alright? Especially you women. The houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. A man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword, and spoil their goods because of the lack of bread and for great tribulation. Because there's going to be a famine out here, mainly produced through martial law, okay, alright, and through natural disaster, okay. So it's going to get bad out here, So, to you protesters, man, I'm gonna let this devil say his little part again. Just believe that all this is over.
Look like Occupy, and yet its genesis will come back to this park and what happened here 2 years ago.
All day, all week, Occupy Wall Street. Anastasia Churkina, RT, New York.
Yeah, so with that, this is the brother Atazawamia from GMS, South Carolina, saying death to America, death to you, to the House of Esau, both 1 and 99%. All right. And shalom to the elders and to the elect. All right, shalom.